Let me ask you something. When was the last time you spent some proper time with someone? Not a quick message, not a scroll through their photos online, but actual time where you came away feeling a bit more like yourself, time where you relaxed, time where you connected, and where you felt a true connection, a real bond. For some of you, that hopefully happened quite recently. For others, it might be harder to answer than you expected. Welcome to, or welcome back to, the new 5 a day. I'm Nick Walters. This is Pillar 5, Your People. And today, we're looking at something that gets filed under nice to have far too often. Human connection. Why it matters. What the science actually shows. And how to think about it if you're someone who feels less connected than you'd like to be. We're not going to tell you to make more friends or join a club or to be more outgoing. What we're going to do is make the case, with some genuinely striking scientific evidence behind it, that your relationships are not separate from your health. They are part of it. Okay? Let's go. So, what are we actually talking about when we talk about human connection? It's not just close friendships. It's not just family. We're not talking about having a packed social calendar. Connection is the full range of relationships that give us a sense that we belong, that we matter to someone, and that someone matters to us. That includes the obvious things: a partner, old friends, siblings, a close colleague you actually talk to. But it also includes the things we tend to undervalue. A neighbour you stop to chat to, the people in a club or a community group, the casual regulars you see at the gym or at the school gate. Researchers call these weak ties, and they contribute more to our sense of connection than we typically recognise. What it does not require is being extroverted or being sociable in the conventional sense or endlessly available to other people. The research is pretty clear that what matters is not the size of your social network. It is the quality of the connections within it. A small number of genuinely warm, reciprocal, reliable relationships can do more for your health than a large but superficial network. So, if you are someone who has always found social situations a bit draining, or who prefers fewer but deeper connections, the science is actually on your side. The goal is not more people. The goal is enough of the right people. Now, here's the thing that the research has made increasingly difficult to ignore. We tend to treat social connections as a lifestyle preference. Some people like lots of social contact, some prefer less. There's introverts and extroverts. It is just a personality thing. It is nice when you have good relationships, but it's not really a health matter. That's what we tell ourselves. But that is not what the science shows. Social connection, the presence of meaningful, supportive relationships, is now understood to be a significant determinant of physical health, mental health, and how long we live. This is not a nice extra. It's a biological need. And its absence, chronic loneliness and isolation, is associated with health risks that are frankly comparable to the ones we take very seriously. I'll give you one number, and I want you to sit with it for a moment. A major meta-analysis covering over 300,000 people across 148 studies found that people with adequate social relationships had a 50% greater likelihood of survival over a given follow-up period compared to those with poor or absent social connection. When the researchers compared that effect to other risk factors, it was comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and it exceeded the risk from physical inactivity, obesity, and excessive alcohol. We spend a lot of time and cultural energy on diet, on exercise, on sleep, and all of those things matter. But connection belongs in that conversation as well. And largely, it isn't there yet. So, why does connection have such a profound effect on health? There are a few different pathways worth understanding. I'll keep them brief. Number one, what isolation does to the body. When we are chronically lonely or unsupported, the body's stress system, the one that releases cortisol and keeps us in a state of low-grade alert, well, that stays switched on for longer than it should. And when that system runs too hot for too long, it affects almost everything: cardiovascular health, immune function, inflammation levels, metabolic regulation, sleep. The people closest to us, literally, have a biological regulating effect. The presence of someone we trust can dampen the stress response. Shared breathing, eye contact, physical proximity. These things calm the nervous system in ways that digital contact cannot fully replicate. We are, in a very literal, biological sense, wired for co-regulation. A life course study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that social isolation in adolescence was associated with elevated markers of inflammation, comparable in effect to physical inactivity at the same life stage. It is not just an old age issue. The effects accumulate from early in life. Number two, what connection does for the mind. The relationship between social connection and mental health is one of the most consistently replicated findings in psychology and epidemiology. A 2002 scoping review covering over 80 studies and more than 2 million participants concluded that social connectedness is a significant determinant of mental health, affecting depression, anxiety, psychological well-being, and social functioning. Now, this runs in both directions. Strong connection protects against mental health problems, and good mental health supports better social function. But the same biodirectionality applies to its absence. Loneliness increases risk of depression. Depression increases withdrawal. Withdrawal deepens loneliness. That cycle is worth interrupting early. Now, the good news is that even relatively modest improvements in social connection are associated with better mental health outcomes. You do not have to overhaul your social life. Tilting the balance matters. Now, number three, the indirect effects. How connection shapes the other choices that we make every day. Now, there's a 2023 paper written partly by Julianne Holt-Lunstad, who is probably the leading researcher in this field. Now, this paper argues the following. A healthy lifestyle is, in substantial part, a social lifestyle. What does that mean? Well, in practice, people who are socially connected tend to eat better, exercise more, sleep more consistently, and engage more readily with healthcare, not because they're trying harder, but because the people around us shape what we see as normal, as achievable, as worth doing. And social norms are health norms. But the reverse is also true. Isolation tends to be associated with the gradual erosion of healthy routines. Less activity, less consistent eating, less sleep, more reliance on convenience and avoidance. Connection is not just emotionally important. It is the context in which healthy living, well, it just becomes easier to do. Now, you've probably heard the word epidemic used in relation to loneliness. And it can be easy to dismiss that as hyperbole, another headline, another moral panic about modern life. But the data is worth taking seriously. In the UK, surveys consistently find that significant proportions of people across all age groups, not just the elderly, all age groups, regularly report feeling lonely. Younger adults in particular often report higher levels of loneliness even than the older generations. The former US Surgeon General published a major advisory in 2023 describing loneliness and isolation as having reached epidemic levels with serious health consequences. And here is the thing that often gets missed in that conversation. If you feel less connected than you'd like, you are not failing at something. It's not failing at anything. You are experiencing something that is structurally common and socially reinforced. The way modern life is organized, mobile work, digital communication, fewer shared community spaces, well, they all make connection harder to maintain without a proactive effort than has been the case for most of human history. Understanding that context matters because it reframes the personal. Loneliness is not a character flaw. It is a health signal. Your body telling you something important is in short supply. And like most health signals, it responds really well to attention. One thing worth saying clearly, because I think it often gets lost, more is not always better. The research is pretty consistent that it is the quality of your relationships, not the quantity, that most reliably predicts health outcomes. Having a handful of people in your life who genuinely know you, who you can be honest with, who you feel warmly towards, and who feel warmly toward you. That's the thing. Not a large network, not a busy social calendar, not the biggest number of contacts. In fact, high conflict relationships, the ones that are consistently draining, demanding, or critical, can be actively harmful. Studies have found that negative social ties are associated with worse health outcomes than simply having fewer relationships. Now, that is important to know because it means the goal is not to maximize contact, it is to cultivate connection. What that looks like will be different for everyone. Some people feel well connected with 2 or 3 close friends and a warm family relationship. Others need more varied social contact to feel a similar sense of belonging. Neither is more correct than the other. The question to ask is not, how many people do I have in my life? But, do I feel genuinely supported? Do I feel seen and like I matter to the people around me? If the answer is broadly yes, even imperfectly, you are probably in better shape than you think. Okay, so let's move on to the practical part, because understanding all of this is one thing, but actually doing something with that knowledge is another thing altogether. And as with every pillar in the new 5 a day, the goal is not to achieve something called perfection. It is not a complete social overhaul. It's about finding something real and sustainable that works for your actual life, your actual personality, in your actual circumstances. 5 starting points. Pick 1 or 2. Don't try all 5. Number 1, reach out to one person. Not a grand gesture, a message. Someone you've been meaning to contact, a friend you've drifted from, a family member you haven't spoken to in a while. Connection atrophies while we wait for the right moment. But the right moment doesn't exist. Well, the right moment is now. 2, make it regular, not occasional. Relationships are built through consistency more than intensity. A recurring walk, a fortnightly phone call, a standing dinner. These do more for a relationship than a once-a-year catch-up. Even something small and regular creates a thread between you and your people. 3, don't underestimate those weak ties we talked about before. The brief but genuine interactions with people you see regularly. A neighbor, a colleague, a regular at a group you go to. These contribute meaningfully to your sense of social presence and belonging. Not every connection needs to be deep. They all add up. 4, consider joining something. a class, a volunteer group, a community activity, a running club, or a faith community. Shared purpose is one of the most reliable routes to new connection, especially for adults whose natural social infrastructure has shifted through work changes, moves, or family transitions. And finally, 5, possibly the most important one, treat this as seriously as you treat your other health habits. In a culture that prizes productivity, spending time on relationships can feel indulgent, but it is not. It is one of the most evidence-backed investments in your long-term health and well-being. It belongs on the list. It doesn't belong at the bottom of the list. Now, your people is pillar 5 of the new 5 a day. And in some ways, it is the one that ties everything else together. What you eat is shaped by the people you eat with. Whether you move is easier when movement is shared. Sleep is harder when you're carrying social stress alone. Even the quiet of me time is more restorative when it's chosen freely, when it is solitude rather than isolation. Connection is not separate from health. It runs through it. The evidence is about as clear as it gets in this field. Strong, warm, reciprocal relationships are one of the most powerful determinants of how well and how long we live. And the good news, the really good news, is that even small, consistent steps in the direction of connection can make a genuine difference. You don't need more people. You need enough of the right ones. People you know, who you can turn to, who notice when you're quiet, and who you notice when they are. That is what your people is all about. And that is what this series has been about, from the first pillar to the last. Now, if you want to go deeper, there's a companion blog post at www.new5aday.com, and that's the number 5, with the full evidence-based version for those who want the science in more detail. We've also created a citations list covering the research that we've drawn on today. Now, if you've found this useful, please like, follow, and share so that we can expand our community too. Now, take care of yourselves and go find your people.